These are images of what Eastwick residents have lived through time and time again.
You're starting all over after a flood.
Weathering years of flooding. When a storm hits, water fills homes. All their belongings cleaned out and stacked near the curb.
People's lives on the corner waiting to go into a dumpster. Their memories.
Located on old wetlands, the predominantly black community is nestled where the Darby and Cobbs Creeks meet. Neighbors Carolyn Mosley, Ted Pickett, and other residents moved to Eastwick decades ago.
I liked that suburban feel, but yet being close enough to the city.
That suburban feel was the point behind building the neighborhood back in the late 1950s.
They built it for largely white families, but in white flight, what we ended up seeing is white residents leaving not just Eastwick, but the entire city, and being replaced with an African-American middle class.
Michael Nairn teaches in Penn's Urban Studies program and studies Eastwick. He believes the planning was ill-conceived from the start. The area already had a well-known history of flooding, and the neighborhood was being built next to a landfill that's since been deemed a Superfund site.
It's hard to imagine, isn't it now, putting people in a place that they knew flooded next to a toxic waste dump, which they knew was a toxic waste dump.
But people are still there and experiencing worsening conditions.
We have much more flooding because we have way more development upstream, and we have sea level rise, which we're beginning to see now.
Nairn says residents have been left with little help.
The city hasn't been able to do a lot, but they were also, for a very long time, not very interested in Eastwick.
Look, I think that we are all agreed that we haven't done enough.
Salim Chapman is Philadelphia's Chief Resilience Officer. Hired in 2020, his job is to prepare the city for climate change, including addressing the Eastwick flooding.
This was a wetland, it was a marshland, and climate change is sort of moving to reclaim that as its original state. And so what we have to do is act quickly and find solutions that can preserve this community.
There have been multiple studies done, including one that concluded using a levee to drain floodwater would not work. And one proposal to move residents to redeveloped land went nowhere.
We haven't been able to translate those studies into actual outcomes.
We as a community have had to just create our own solutions.
Mosley has a new proposal, a land swap. This is 128 acres of city-owned land in Eastwick. The idea is to build new homes here on the higher ground and move residents from the most flood-prone parts of the neighborhood. The city isn't ruling it out. This could be Philadelphia's first case of climate migration.
I think that's the best case scenario in terms of preservation of life, avoiding displacement, and making people whole.
We're all on the same page that we want to find a solution that really allows the residents to stay here, but we want to make sure we're looking at it from every possible angle to ensure that we don't have the same horrors of the past happen again.
The residents of Eastwick know as long as nothing is done, they face a worsening flood threat.
We know that we'll get flooded again, we just don't know when.
In Eastwick, Karen Hua, NBC 10 News.